everyone. How are we all doing? How has our week been? Hope I've been studying. I hope I've been learning. All right. So in today's class, we're going to be talking about authentication protocols and standards. So what are the objectives for the class? Number one is to understand the concept and types of authentication, identify the essential roles of authentication in cybersecurity, identify and describe authentication protocols and standards, and describe how Google use OAuth to authenticate users. So let's dive in. So what's authentication? Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user, the system, of a user, of a system, or an entity trying to access a particular resource or a particular system or data. So let's talk about this, right? You want to sign in, you want to use a particular system, maybe you want to use your laptop, or you want to use your Google account, you want to try use something. So the point of or the process of trying to identify yourself and say, oh, my name is Amara, oh, my name is Energy, oh, my name is Chika, oh, I'm the one that wants to authenticate, I'm the one that wants to use this system. The point of doing that, the process of doing that actually called authentication is basically identifying or verifying that this particular identity, this particular user, this particular system, this particular entity, right, is the one that wants to access the resource that we have, the system that we have, or the data that we have. So it plays a crucial role in cybersecurity by ensuring that only authorized individuals or entity are granted access to sensitive information, network, or system. So the goal is just to ensure that only the authorized people, only the right people actually get access to this information, actually get access to the particular resource, actually get access to the particular system or the particular network. So what are the essential rules of authentication in cybersecurity? Number one is to verify identity. Authentication helps confirm the identity of a user or a system. It ensures that the entity requesting access is who or what it claims to be. It prevents unauthorized or malicious actor from gaining entry. So basically when it says verifying identity, it simply means that okay, I claim to be let's say I want to sign into my Google account now and I am claiming to be Amara Jonathan, right? And that's my claim. I'm claiming to be Amara Jonathan. So the goal of authentication is to confirm that me, I am truly Amara Jonathan. And how will it do that? Last week we talked about username and we talked about strong passwords. So it will do that by checking my password. So when I put my email and I put my password, so when it is confirming that this email and password actually match, it means that they say, okay, you are truly Amara Jonathan. And to take it take the security step a notch higher, it asks for another form of authentication. That's why we talk about multiple factor authentication in the last class, you get. So that is where how it verifies my identity. It verifies that okay, I am who I'm claiming to be. You understand? Number two is access control. Once an entity identity is verified, sorry, once an entity is identified, right? Authentication plays a key role in determining what resource, what data, or what privilege that entity is allowed to access. So let's think about it in an organization now. Let's say we have like a what portal will I use now? Okay, let's even use a school. Beautiful, beautiful. A school portal. By looking at a school portal now, you sign in the same portal that you are signing in as a student, the same portal that your lecturer will sign in, the same portal that the HOD will sign in, the same portal that everybody is going to sign in, right? But you as a student, you have less privilege. You only have privilege to view what you are to view your results, while your lecturer will have the privilege to actually make edit to this course. You understand? So using that like authentication works has an essential role for access control. So once your identity is verified, so let's say you put your username and password and say, okay, I am Amara, I am Amara Jonathan. It verifies and say, okay, oh, the password is correct. Your another form of authentication is correct. The next point to now be what level of access, what level of what What privilege do you have? You understand? So that's the next thing. The next thing is what privilege do you have? The next thing is what privilege do you have? The next thing is what privilege do you have? So it's more of like if I am a teacher, right? I have the privilege to edit my students, sorry, I have privilege to edit my student details. I can put like, okay, you scored 5/10 in your math, you scored 10/10 in your English. I have the privilege to do that. You understand? But like if I'm a student and they check and say, okay, you are identified as a student, you're never as a student. You know how you only see it. What course I editing? You only see it. You understand? So this is where there was time in our class I talk about least privilege principle, and I also talked about privilege escalation. So maybe when a student has now the ability to now edit his own score, which is not supposed to be so. You understand? So that's why you say, oh, this person has escalated privilege, or I mean the authentication did not authenticate person well. You understand? But most times the education really works fine. So basically, one very essential role, when I say essential, I mean essential role of authentication is access control. So with that, you can be able to say, okay, you have permission to do this, you don't have permission to do this. That is one of the role of authentication. The next thing is user accountability. So, for example, in an organization, we come in, we sign into the Active Directory, right? And you download something malicious, and then everywhere is making noise. We can be able to tell, we can be able to track and say, who is the person that downloaded this stuff? Why can we tell? Because you are logged in. You understand? The only way we can tell, how we can tell is that you are logged in. So that's why we know that, okay, the person that is doing this stuff, so that's how we can be able to tell because you're logged in, you can be able to tell that okay, you're the one that downloaded this malicious file that is making noise. You're the one that downloaded this malicious file that is making noise in the system. They can be able to say, okay, yeah, go and look for this person's laptop. This laptop that is disturbing us. You understand? This is a laptop that wants to compromise everything that we worked on. You understand? So basically, that is user accountability. It can track you. So, for example, let's say now most people don't know this. They connect to their company's internet, their company's Wi-Fi. They'll be downloading things. They can track you. They know you. They know what you are doing. You are downloading movie. You are going to the net Niger. They've stopped uploading movie there. Oh. The net Niger movies. They know you. They know what you are doing. They know just like they don't want to para for you. They know what you are doing. They can track you. They can see even if they don't they can see like what you are doing. You understand? So if they want to check, because like I said, no, they'll be seeing though. If they want to check, they want to monitor it, they know what you are doing. So if you log into the network, if you lose the company's network, if you're using company's laptop, they can track it. They can see what you are doing. So that's why when it comes to company related, just be careful. Don't implicate yourself. Then next thing is password and credential protection. Authentication mechanisms protect password and other credentials and ensuring they are not exposed or intercepted during the authentication process. So furthermore, during this class, we're going to talk about authentication protocols and standards, right? So those authentication protocols are in charge of ensuring that while the user puts their username and password and we're trying to check and we're trying to verify that okay, this user identity is sure, okay, this user identity is correct. The goal of the authentication protocol is to ensure that that information, that username, that password is not going to be intercepted, it's not going to be exposed to an attacker. You understand? So that's one of the goals or one of the roles of a authentication protocol, and that's one of the essential rules of authentication in general in cybersecurity. So five is preventing unauthorized access. So by confirming the identity of users or system, authentication prevents unauthorized access to data and system and reducing the risk of data breaches and cyber attacks. So when we are doing authentication, right, as you want to sign in, you have to put your username and you have to put the correct username and password and probably a multiple factor authentication as well. Right, it's just to ensure that the wrong person does not have access to the system. The wrong person, person that is not authorized, the person that is just trying their luck, they are just guessing password, does not have access to the system and data. So this also sharpens or improves your security as an organization. Then number 6 is enforcing security policies. So authentication enables organizations to enforce security policies by controlling who can access certain resources or perform certain actions. So we talked about like when it identifies, okay, you are this person. Maybe you want to sign into the system, you now identify that, okay, I am this person, you understand? So it now helps to ensure security policies are being enforced. Just take for example now, we want to ensure that when teachers can edit scores when you sign to a student portal, with authentication you can have like a group called teachers. So if this person is in the teachers group, this person can edit information, but once you are not in that teachers group, you cannot edit information. So it's with authentication that you can make this work, you understand? So it limits like certain activities to certain people, you understand, while ensuring that, okay, if you have this particular you're under this particular group, you have this particular access to this resource. If you are under this group, you can only perform this action. That's why sometimes when you come to a company and you are guests, you sign into the guest network as a guest. There's even guest network as a guest. So you sign the guest network as a guest, and then you can't do some things. You can't go to certain sites because they are using authentication to ensure that um, security policies are being enforced. Then the next point is user and system management. So authentication is a fundamental part of user and system management. It enables the creation, the deletion, modification, and modification of user account, password, and access permission. Yes. So with authentication, you can manage users. You can do something called user management, in the sense that you can create a new user account, you can edit a new user account, you can delete a new user account, and most of these permissions are what the administrator has. It's not just regular, you can't just come in and start doing that. No, it must be an administrator to perform these functions. Then we have cybersecurity compliance. Authentication mechanisms are often required to meet cybersecurity compliance standards and regulations. This standard ensures that organization implement adequate security measures for authentication. We've talked about compliance a lot. There are a lot of cybersecurity compliance. Yeah, we have a lot of cybersecurity compliance organizations and bodies that will hold your neck and bill you and make you pay fine if you are not compliant. So with authentication mechanism, it helps to ensure that you follow, because there's there's a there's a policy for least least access or least privilege access, something like that. There's a policy for that. So least privilege access, least privilege principle, where you ensure that, okay, the least you should not give more than somebody has, you understand. There's also the section of the access restriction, where certain people can do certain things, and all this you can do everything in the umbrella of authentication. You understand? So this will help you to meet all those standards and processes, all those requirements, all those policies, all those procedures that this the cybersecurity compliance organization give out. So you can use authentication as an umbrella to ensure that you implement all those security measures. Then securing remote access. So as we know now, right, we do a lot of remote work these days. People are moving mostly remote now. People are praying to have remote work. People are working to have remote work. People are trying their best to have remote. People are currently doing remote work. You understand? So with the rise of remote work and cloud-based services, authentication is critical for securing access to system and data from outside the traditional work parameters. You understand? It protects against unauthorized remote access. So basically, as people are praying and wishing to have remote work, who are currently doing remote work, the goal is that anybody that's trying to access the company's resources outside the company's location, let's say you are located in VI, Lagos, and somebody from Akwa Ibom wants to access the company's resource. right? The goal is that let that connection between the person in Akwa Ibom and the office in VI in Lagos should be secure. That communication should be secured. So that is the reason for authentication. And that's one of the essential roles of authentication in cybersecurity. So the next point we are going into is types of authentication. So authentication can take various forms, and different types of authentication methods are used to verify the identity of users or system. So the choice is dependent on the specific security need and the user experience required. So authentication can take different forms and kinds. So let's go. Number one, we have the password authentication. This one is the most common and it's a traditional method of authentication. Usually, it's always password and something. But like yeah, so password is one of the most common. It's a typical method for authentication. Users enter like a secret password or passphrase to have access to a system or to a resource. You understand? So password should be kept confidential to for it to be effective. So if you're scrolling out your passwords, if you're putting your password online on your social media accounts, then the password is of no use because anybody can sign in and say, oh, they are you. And it's a system. You cannot tell that it's not you. As long as you put the right username and as long as you put the right password, it doesn't matter whether it is you that is doing it or somebody else that is doing it. It is going to say, okay, this is you. And if person performs any action, if person does anything, it will say, oh, you are the one. Oh, Energy did this. Oh, Chika did this. Oh, Ebube did this. You understand? All right. So the next one is biometric authentication. This one is hinged on like your physics, is hinged on your human being factor, like is hinged on your physical characteristics, what you are, right? You have a thumb. If you are a human being, you have fingerprints. So you have your facial shape is different, your iris is unique, your voice is unique. Even sometimes, right? Some authentication even goes as far as doing DNA. You understand? So basically, like this biometrics is more of like you as an individual, you as a human being, like your physical attributes as a human being, like how you look, what is on your skin. You understand? What is on you, like you. Basically like your fingerprint, your facial structure. I know a friend of mine that did like this facial recognition for her final year project. It was a very lovely project. Really, she was using it for attendance. So it was like a facial. So you look at the camera, it scans your face, and then it keeps track of your location. So it scans your face, and then it tracks your location. Okay, this face was found in Lagos. This face was found in Adamawa, and so it's very like you can go into reading about this. Stuff are really interesting. There are a lot of algorithms that go into doing fingerprints and facial recognition. A lot of AI and machine learning. They have to create what they call these things again, models. Yes, you have to create like models. Like it's so nice and so interesting. Like if you dive down this road, it is sweet. All right. So the next one is the token based authentication. So token based authentication means that you have a physical device with you. You have like a device that generates a code. So it's more of like you are having yeah, you have a device that generates a code, or you have like a physical something. So you can have like your smart card. So you know how we have like access card in organizations where you want to like go in, not start the door, you tap on the door and it opens for you. And that's an access card. That is a smart card. Then we have the hardware token, like things that traditional banks give, like people like GT Bank. GT Bank give those. First Bank, most traditional bank give them. First Bank, GT Bank. What that traditional bank are there? So I don't access should give. I've not seen access phone. But like most traditional banks, they make use of these hardware tokens, right? And then we have mobile applications. So I talked now last time I talked about like Google authentication app. So you go to Google, you download Google authentication app, and you put your mail. So when you are trying to log in somewhere, you can just send your code. You get. So the next thing, we have the multiple factor authentication. This is basically like a combination of different authentication methods, at least two. You understand? So it can be like you're using your password and something you have that is your mobile app that has your one-time password, or like your thumbprint and your one-time password, your thumbprint and your password. Just share something, share multi, it must be two. You share two and above, multi, two and above, you get. So it's a combination, multiple authentication, more of like a combination of different authentication. And next one we have is certificate-based authentication. So in certificate-based authentication, a digital certificate is used to verify the authenticity English, share that word. Let me highlight the word. So this word of just to check like how like the how to verify the authenticity of a user or a system. So digital certificates are issued by a trusted certificate authority. So let's talk about the certificate-based authentication. So most of the times, most things that use certificate-based authentication are like websites, right? So a certification is issued to a website, right? And okay, this website is right. This website is authentic. This website is from who the website say they are from. You understand? So that a user can, you know, the way how we have a lot of phishing websites now. But Facebook website will have its own digital certificate that is issued to Facebook. They'll say, okay, this certificate, you can know that this is the real Facebook.com. You understand? And every other Facebook.com is counterfeit. You get? So that is why we are using certificate based authentication. So the next one is knowledge-based authentication. This involves answering questions or providing information that only the legitimate user should, such as the media name, the name of the pet. This is what like when you are trying to recover password, when you are trying to do password recovery, right? This is what usually happen. They'll ask you what's your mother's media name, what's the name of your first pet, what was the first place you lived, you understand? Who was your first crush? I didn't know that they ever added that one. I'm just saying. I don't think they ever added that one to any authentication and knowledge based authentication. But most of the times, like when you're trying to recover your mail, right? When you're trying to do you want to recover your mail, you want to recover something, they usually ask knowledge base. In the sense that like if when you're creating your account, you put in the answers to these questions already. So now you're trying to recover this account, you need to give the answer. So that's why you need to put something that's unique to you or something that you always remember. You understand? Let's say the first place you traveled to. I feel like if the first time you travel to outside the country would definitely be something that you would always remember, right? Or maybe the first place you lived at, or the your first best friend or something. I don't know how sharp your memories are. You understand? But like always put something that is unique to you. Not that someone can just know about you, but something that you can also remember, because sometimes you might want to do something extremely unique that when it's time for you to recover your password, recover your email or your that account, you can't remember it at that time. So the next point is time-based authentication. So time-based authentication requires users to log in within a specific time frame. So let's say you have like 10 minutes or 5 minutes to log in, or I don't take it over, maybe 10 seconds to log in, or use a one-time code that is generated for a limited period. So when we talk about one-time code, it usually lasts for 10 to 30 seconds, right? So generates one-time code, 10 to 30 seconds, you put it in, and then you can sign in. This enhances security by reducing the risk of code reuse. So um I told you about okay, no, not that one. But like basically just reduce like the risk of like reusing the code. So if somebody fish, let's say for example now you get a call, you were fished and unconsciously you shall dropped the code, right? If the person did not put the code on time, that's expired. You understand? So basically, I think that helps. If you refuse to, like, if at the end of the day you end up being fished, right? At least they'll try to help you to ensure that the code expires on time. Then device-based authentication. So this authentication can be based on the characteristics and the identity of the device used for the access. So let's say a specific smartphone. Let's say in a company, you guys use a particular computer, a particular system to perform a particular action. So only that system in that company can do that. You understand? And that is device-based authentication. So it's authenticating not based on who the user is. It's authenticating based on the device, based on the system that is being used. You understand? So device fingerprinting and MAC address authentication example. So one this also happens when you there's a company Wi-Fi and you are doing bring your own device. I didn't bring your own device where the company doesn't give you a laptop. You bring your own device to work. And so they put your MAC address when they are trying to like set up your ability to use the Wi-Fi. And so that is it will authenticate that okay, this MAC address has the rights or has the permission to even connect to this Wi-Fi. When you now connect to the Wi-Fi, they'll now ask you to put your username and password. But first of all, for you to even connect to the Wi-Fi, you have to use your MAC address has to be authenticated. Or you can because if that's the case, you can even come and have like multiple devices. And as long as you have a username and password, you can log in. Understand? But just to ensure that especially if there's a policy where you're doing one device per person. So to do one device per person, you actually have to do MAC address authentication. All right, so let's go. So the authentication protocols and standards. So let's get to it. So there are various there are various authentication protocols and standards used in the field of cybersecurity to facilitate secure and standardized method for verifying the identity of users and devices as that system. So the goal is that we want to perform authentication, right? We've talked about authentication, we've talked about different forms, talked about like the essential roles that it plays in the cybersecurity industry. And then the point is that okay, how do we do this? So we need to set up standards and process. When there is no standard, people can do anything they want and everything will be haywire. You understand? But there are standards and processes in place when it comes to authentication. So these protocols plays a critical role in securing access to data, services, and networks. So one of the this thing we have is Kerberos. We have Kerberos. Kerberos is a network authentication protocol that uses symmetric key cryptography to verify the identity of the user and the services. It is commonly used in the Windows environment and helps prevent man-in-the-middle attack. So Kerberos is mostly used like when you are doing like Windows environment, so things like your Active Directory, your Active Directory. You're trying to authenticate your Azure and the rest. So basically, it's a network authentication protocol. Especially when you are trying to do what's that stuff when you create an account with Active Directory and different people, they can use somebody like a particular host or a particular laptop. Different people can sign in on that particular laptop as long as they put their username and their password correctly, right? So you use Kerberos to facilitate such authentication. Then the next one is the LDAP. So LDAP is called Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. It's a directory service protocol often used for authentication and authorization in large organizations. So it allows for centralized management of user accounts and authentication data. So LDAP is used in a large environment. It's also used for Active Directory authentication and the rest. So we have the Radius. So Radius is called Remote Authentication Dial-in User Service. So it is an authentication and accounting protocol commonly used for remote access authentication. Things like such as dial-up and VPN authentication. I have talked about VPN in the last class. We talked about VPN virtual private network. So as remote work is improving, we talked about how authentication is useful because when as people are trying to do remote work, right? We want a safe communication between an officer that is in VI to the employee that is in Adamawa or employee that is in Akwa Ibom. So this radius now is also one of the things that facilitates one of the protocols, one of the key protocols that facilitates remote access authentication, remote work. So the next one we have the Tagasis. Hope I pronounced it right. Tagasis. So it is terminal controller access control system protocol. It is a protocol that is used for authentication, authorization, and accounting, primarily in network devices such as router and switches. So basically, this one works for network devices like router, and we also log into a router, we want to log into a switch, do some setups and everything. So that is basically for network devices. You want to log into a firewall. So this Plus is Pegasus Plus is one of the authentication protocols and standard that is used for network based device authentication. So the next one we have is OAuth, which is called Open Authentication. It is an authorized framework that allows third-party application to access resources on a user's behalf without exposing the user's credentials. Now, let me break this down for you. Let's say, for example, you want to sign into, let's say, Notion. I don't know if you guys know Notion. So Notion is a web-based writing, a web-based what do you call that thing where you write open notes something like where you write. So you want to sign to Notion now, and it says sign in with your Google account. And then you click, oh, let's sign in my Google account. Or you want to sign to somewhere and they say sign in with your Google account. You click on sign in with my Google account. That sign in with your Google account is called OAuth. OAuth. So what does it do? It allows Notion, right, to create an account for you with your Google account identity without Notion having your Google account username and password. Do you get it? Of course, to have your Gmail, it will have your mail because it uses mail, right? But like Notion or whatever third party application you want to sign into, if you are using sign in as with Google account, you sign in with Google account. So it's Google gives it the permission to create an account for you using Google's identity of you without having your username and password. All right. So the next one is OpenID Connect. So OpenID Connect is an identity layer built on top of OAuth 2.0. So that's the second version of OAuth. So they built OpenID Connect on it. It provides authentication and identity information in a standardized way, facilitating SSO and user authentication. So what's SSO? SSO is called single sign-on. What is single sign-on? Single sign-on is the ability to help you sign into different applications or different services with one credentials. So it's like basically a let's say for example you are in an organization, and your organization you guys have your where you guys can book lunch. You guys have your HR platform. You guys have like your documentation platform, right? And you need to have username and password to sign into all these things. But with OpenID, right? Or with OpenID, with OAuth, with authentication, you can just use your company's username and password, and you can be able to sign into those three different applications. Do you get what I'm saying? You can just once you sign in on your company's laptop as with your username and your password, your company username and password, you can now have access to the HR platform, the documentation platform, the launch menu picking platform just with your username and password for the company's account. You understand? So that way, that is called single sign-on. So you can read more about single sign-on. And we have the OAuth. So, this one is not OAuth. This one is OAuth. Initiative for Open. authentication. So auth is all right. So auth is an organization that defines open authentication standards, including HMAC based HMAC one-time password, time-based one-time password algorithm used in MFA. So basically, it's an organization that defines um open authentication standards. They just know it as auth is an organization, and what they do, they define the open authentication standards. So there are different authentication standards. We have the ones for one-time password. They're just different ones. So they are defining those algorithms that are used in multiple factor authentication. And then we have the next one, we have this JWT. So JWT is JSON Web Token. So JWT is a compact self-contained means of representing claims to be transferred between two parties. It is often used in modern web application for authentication and authorization. So this one is mostly used by developers, especially when like they're trying to authenticate users. Because I tried doing web development at some point in time, and we usually use JWT when it comes to like creating when we come to the back end of authentication. So how does Google use OAuth to authenticate a user, to authenticate users? So Google use OAuth as a key component in its authentication and authorization process to allow users to access various services and applications. All right, so number one, we have the user consent and authorization request. When you attempt to log into a third-party service or application using your Google account, that's where you see sign in with Google. The services sends an authentication request to Google. So, for example, you go to a website, right? Let's say you go to which website I use? Let's say you use Notion, right? You go to a website and there's this option called sign in with Google. So you click on sign in with Google. When you click on sign in with Google, it sends an authentication request to Google. So Google acts as an identity provider now, and it processes that request that was sent by the third party application. So if you are not already signed into your Google account, Google will redirect you to a sign-in page where to ask you, okay, put in your Google username and password. You understand? So that it can prove your identity. This step is a critical part of authentication process because it confirms that you are the legitimate owner of the Google account. Basically, most of the time, you also have two-factor authentication in this step to ensure that the signing with Google is the right person that wants to sign in with Google. Then the next point is user consent. So after successfully signing in with Google, Google will now prompt you to grant permission to the third party service. So this is where you decide what access you are comfortable with granting to the application. You can review the permission requested by the application and choose to accept or deny them. Very simple. So let's go ahead. So you're signing into Notion. Yes, you click on sign in with Google. Google asks you put your username and password. That's if you are not already signed in. But if you are already signed, to take it directly to prompting you. So it will give you like a list of access that the request that the third party application is asking for. The third party application can be asking for things like your calendar, things like your contact, things like your email. So you will now be the one to uncheck the box that you feel like this application does not need this permission. This application does not need this permission. So you uncheck those boxes and check the ones that you want to allow this application to have. So this is how where you are saying you are reviewing the permission requested by the application, and you can choose to accept what they are saying, what they want, or you deny some of them. So the next thought is once you've given your consent, right? The next part is access token and request and refresh token. So upon your consent, Google issue an access token to the third party. This token is temporal and revocable authorization, allowing the application to access your Google data for a specific purpose and time period. So the access that access token that is granted to the third party is for a specific period of time. The person can access your Google data, though that the data that you permitted the user to access, the third party application to access in the first place. You understand? So it gives a access token to the third party application that okay, for this period of time, you can access this information. And Google may also issue a refresh token, which is used to obtain new access token when the current one expires. So the next part is access to Google services. The Google party service can now use the access token to access your Google service, like your Google Mail, your calendar on your behalf. The service can only access the data and perform action for which you granted during the consent process. Exactly. So remember that the consent process, right? It gave you a list of okay, what this particular third party application wants to access. That you are the one to deny or permit that third party application from having access to those information. Then user control. User regains control over the access they have granted to the third party. They can review and manage the application that have access to their Google account through Google account settings. So if you go to Google account settings, you can see those applications that have permissions to your Google account. You can either remove them, you can restrict their access, you can give them more access if there is a need for that. Then the next one is token expiry and refresh. Access token has a limited time frame and typically lasts for an hour. When they expire, the third party can use the refresh token to request a new access token without requiring the user's intervention. So by using OAuth in this manner, Google ensures that the user data remains secure and private. Users can grant or revoke access to their data for each connected application, and the process is both user-friendly and privacy-focused. So this approach allows users to enjoy the convenience of single sign-on while maintaining control over their data. So what I just explained to you is actually a process of single sign-on. So with this, you can grant access, revoke access for each connected application to your Google account. I hope this helps. I hope you understand. You can go through the process again. You can read it word for word. You can practice it. Go to an application that you want to sign in. Maybe you sign in with Google. Click on sign in with Google. You go through the process, and then with that in mind, you cannot be thinking. So usually, when that point for consent coming, people just accept everything and be going. Don't do that. As a cybersecurity professional, don't do that. Go and read it. Go and read what they're asking for and say, this do you really need this permission? Do you really need it? Go and think, go and read. And so don't follow the crowd. As a cybersecurity professional, you need to start doing some things. You understand? Some things in place, you understand? So challenges of implementing and maintaining and managing authentication protocols and standards. Number one is integrating authentication protocols with existing system and application can be complex. Instead, so let's say you already have you want to introduce simple sign-on to your organization. People are already using different, people have HR platform, people have launch platform, people have clinical, people have different platforms that people are using. And then you now want to introduce single sign-on. That's okay, let's use OAuth to ensure that once you sign in as the with the company's username and password, you should have access to all this platform. So the administrator guy will be in trouble. He has to read, he has to understand. Okay, now I think that one should be a little bit easier to do now. But like he has to read, he has to understand, he has to put things so that you don't go and do rubbish and spoil everything. And maybe by mistake you now remove the whole authentication in the first place. So those are the things and the challenges. Sometimes integrating these things can be quite an issue. Then the next one is security risks. Security breaches of vulnerability authentication protocol can have severe consequences. Getting ahead of evolving cyber threat and vulnerability is an ongoing challenge. So another thing is that um attackers are not sleeping, right? Okay, LDAP is secured. but somebody else is looking for a way to breach it. Okay, Kerberos is secure. Somebody else where it's not sleeping is trying to breach it. You understand? So that is why you do. That's not the security risk. You need to keep you on your toes. You need to always be reading. You need to always be checking. Okay, are there news? You understand? You need to put yourself like make sure that okay, this particular protocol that I'm using for my organization is safe, and you need to be checking for updates because who that did this stuff, they are still releasing updates. So you don't just do your own and sleep. You keep on updating, updating. Then we have the user experience versus security. So one thing is striking a balance. You understand? You don't want to do a process that people will be tired, people will be up for sure and say, I beg, this security place is too hard. But I let them hack me. What do I even have? Understand? We have to try and ensure that um whatever security process you are going for, whatever authentication process you are going for, right? You are ensuring that the authentication process is not cumbersome for your clients, for your users. You understand? Just you have to ensure that, especially banks now, bank you have to ensure that okay, the authentication person I'm going for as a bank entity, as a bank, as a financial institution, you understand? It's not overwhelming that the users will just vex and say they are tired. You understand? So the next one is password recovery and reset. This one, one thing is that you can always forget your password. You always need to there should always be a place available for people to reset or recover their password. So the goal is to ensuring that you handle this password recovery and reset process securely while preventing unauthorized access to accounts can be complex. So your goal is that you want to ensure that okay, if you are saying you forgot password, anybody can come and put email and say I forgot password. You understand? You want to ensure that okay, the process of recovering password, right? It's secure, but also you don't want it to you also don't want the it to be too difficult for the person that forgot the password, but then you also want it to be too easy so that the person that so that a wrong person will not just come and put email and say I forgot password, that kind of thing. So that's what these are the challenges that as a security personnel, as an administrator, these are challenges that you think about when it comes to authentication protocols and authentication standards. So, what are the most common types of authentication protocols and standards used today? What are the biggest challenges our organization face in implementing and managing authentication protocols and standards? What challenge what are the administrators what challenges do they face when they want to do all these things, you understand? And how can organization mitigate this challenge? So, okay, an organization is facing challenge of implementing single sign-on. So how do they work through it? How do they work through this process? You understand? But this requires you to read wide and read far. Google about single sign-on. Google about auth. Google about like how people how organizations make their authentication work. You understand? So just Google about these things, read, understand, and then like that way, when you are talking or saying something, people are like, you're a woman of your craft, you're a man of your craft. You have something. You understand what you're saying, that kind of thing. So I implore you guys to please read a lot. Study, read far, read wide, read, just study. Then, if you have any questions, please go ahead, drop your questions, please. Don't be shy, drop your questions. I think we need to plan a when we have like an actual class. I think we really need to do this. We need to plan when we have an actual class where we can really answer all these questions. Then the assignment very simple. How does Kerberos authentication work protocol work? So read about Kerberos. Know okay, what does Kerberos do? Blah blah blah. Understand it. Kerberos is a very vast, it's very in depth. It requires a lot of reading and to understand. So well done. All right, thank you very much. I am grateful. Thank you very much. I hope this class was impactful. Hope you learned a lot. I hope this class entered. Hope you entered. All right. Have a very wonderful day. Bye bye.